The Los Angeles Rams have been the NFL's most aggressive team since general manager Les Snead and head coach Sean McVay paired together back in 2017. The Rams have been one of the most successful organizations over the past 6 seasons, including 2 Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl victory in 2021. Heading into this past season, the Rams had high hopes of repeating their championship victory, but it was clear early on the team just wasn't the same. Key players like Andrew Whitworth, Von Miller, Odell Beckham Jr., and Austin Corbett leaving in free agency, the Rams were already facing an uphill battle to replace multiple of their star players. The situation got even worse with several significant injuries to starters along the offensive line, a high ankle sprain that sent Cooper Kupp to IR in Week 10, and elbow and concussion issues with Matt Stafford that placed him on IR around midseason. The team imploded early on after a 3-3 start, losing 6 consecutive games, and moved to 3-9 with 5 games left on the year. The Rams would then finish 5-12 and will go down as one of the worst returning Super Bowl champions in NFL history. It's quite difficult for any general manager to work around an aging roster and salary cap hell, but I think the Rams have done a semi-decent job of staying competitive. With that being said, the state of the Rams roster is, well, confusing. Matt Stafford looks to return after the worst season of his career since his rookie season, throwing 10 touchdowns to 8 interceptions in 9 games, posting a 3-6 record. He's entering year 15, going on age 35, coming off of a season-ending injury, and is still dealing with lingering injuries going back to his time with the Detroit Lions. While one can project optimism on the situation and expect Stafford to heal up, there is significant evidence Stafford may never be the same again. It's not often a 35-year-old injured quarterback suddenly becomes healthy and turns it around. While this is all generally negative, there is a world in which Stafford can figure it out. For one, the NFC, especially the quarterbacks, are very weak, and even if Stafford isn't what he was in 2021, there's a good chance that just by default he can be a top 5-ish quarterback in the NFC. He's also in a good position to succeed with Sean McVay as his head coach and play caller with an array of offensive weapons. Setting Stafford's analysis aside, I don't love what the Rams did with the rest of their roster. Entering free agency, the team was in an extreme salary cap predicament and restructured Stafford and Aaron Donald's contract, giving them some more cap flexibility, but even that wasn't enough to make any signings. The Rams essentially sat out of the free agency process. Unfortunately, key players still left the team despite them freeing up a little bit of money. Starting safety Taylor Rapp, defensive tackles A'Shawn Robinson and Greg Gaines, guard David Andrews, and cornerback Troy Hill all left the team in free agency. While none of these players are bona fide stars at their position, these are still multiple starting spots the Rams are losing and need to replace in the draft. Add to the fact that this team won just 5 games and now is losing 5 starters, it's just difficult to find that number of impact rookies in any draft. I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention the Jalen Ramsey trade and spoke about just how much I do not understand this move. I talk all the time about a team understanding where you are and recognizing whether you can compete or not. The worst place to be in the NFL is not losing 15 games in a season and picking number 1 overall. The worst place is consistently winning 5 to 8 games a year, not being good enough to compete for a championship, but also not being bad enough to pick atop the draft. Think of a team like maybe Washington over the last 3 seasons. The Ramsey trade sort of feels like the Rams are confused on where they are, and I can't say I necessarily blame them. The team is returning their core 3 players, Matt Stafford, Aaron Donald, and Cooper Kupp, giving them a real chance to compete next season. Yet they traded Jalen Ramsey for a 3rd-round pick, not even a first or a second, a 3rd-round pick. That is a ridiculous value steal for the Dolphins and makes me question what the Rams' direction is heading into next year. The Rams lacked a 1st-round pick in the NFL draft, using it on the Matt Stafford trade a couple years ago, but were one of the most active teams on days 2 and 3, picking a whopping 14 times. They began by taking TCU guard Steve Avila in round 2 to become a day 1 impact starter around the offensive line, which they desperately needed, and followed that up with edge rusher Byron Young and defensive tackle Kobe Turner with their 2 3rd-round pick selections. I loved all of these picks, especially the Byron Young pick at edge defender that slate big needs and look to be impact starters at their respective positions. Honestly, the only pick from the entire draft that I absolutely hated was the Stetson Bennett pick, the quarterback from Georgia. I've heard a lot of crazy takes on opposite ends of the spectrum from people on Twitter and around draft media. As a person who watched Bennett, I think it's pretty clear he was a really, really good college quarterback who just doesn't seem to have the traits to translate to the next level. While he has the athleticism and overall moxie that you look for, he has a number of character concerns, which I don't know the total extent of, but they exist. He lacks arm strength, and although this isn't a knock on him specifically, we just don't know what he's going to look like with true pressure, as he was throwing from perfect pockets because Georgia was just that dominant. I don't have some crazy take about Stetson Bennett. I don't really care about the fact that he's 25 years old. I think that's a little overblown. I just don't see any sort of starter upside, and I could totally see a situation where he's cut after year one, and to totally be honest, I think he was a pure 6th to 7th round prospect. Overall, the general direction of the Rams really confuses me. While the team is retaining their big three with Matt Stafford, Aaron Donald, and Cooper Kupp, the rest of the team is really in jeopardy. With several starters leaving in free agency, the Rams are relying on their infusion of youth in the draft to come in and make true day one impacts and turn their team's future around. If one thing is working in their favor of the Rams, it's the fact that the NFC is so weak, and just by having McVay and a potentially healthy Stafford could be enough to sneak them into the playoffs. I think the path to success for the Rams relies on staying healthy and Stafford returning to what he was in 2021. Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp are also returning from injuries, so you hope that they can become the same guys that they were pre-last season. You're also betting on the fact that a lot of these rookies are going to come in and replace what the Rams had last year with some of their impact starters. This whole Rams situation is really up in the air, and I could see a scenario in which they make the playoffs, and I could also see a scenario where they're kind of what they were last year and just aren't competitive at all. So definitely let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I would love to hear your opinions. Like and subscribe is the easiest way to support my channel, and I will see you all in the next video.